Today's episode of Off the Timeline is titled The Secret 1996 SEC Expansion That Nearly Broke the BCS. In 1996, the SEC almost did something that would have changed college football forever. Not in 2011, not in 2024, in 1996. And if it had happened, the Big 12 might have fractured before it ever stabilized, the BCS might have collapsed before it crowned its first champion, and Alabama's 2000s dynasty might have started 5 years earlier. This is alternate history, but it is rooted in real incentives, real politics, and a real moment of instability that almost no one talks about. Because in the chaos after the Southwest Conference collapsed, the SEC had a choice in this alternate universe: play it safe or quietly expand into Texas. And if they had chosen differently, the BCS era might have been born broken. And that sets the table for the 1996 instability. Let's rewind to 1996. The Southwest Conference is gone. The Big 12 is brand new. Revenue sharing rules are barely settled. Texas is already pushing for disproportionate control. Nebraska is dominant on the field. The SEC looks stable, but beneath the surface, the SEC is geographically capped. They own the Southeast. They dominate the 3:30 CBS window, but they do not control Texas inventory, mountain time leverage, or late night national exposure. Meanwhile, the Big 12 is sitting on Texas, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Colorado, and a rising Kansas State. And you may be thinking to yourself the SEC had no reason to expand in 1996. They were already strong, but strength isn't the same as security. And in this alternate history, the SEC sees something forming: a potential Western power block, a Big 12 plus Pac alignment, shared bowl leverage, and long-term TV dominance in late windows. That's the problem. And that sets the table to the secret expansion. In this alternate history, the SEC approaches a program most people would never expect or suspect: Texas Tech. Not Texas, not Texas A&M, Texas Tech. Why? Because Texas Tech is politically agile, donor backed by oil money, geographically disruptive, and not powerful enough to demand control. And most importantly, they're willing. And you may be thinking to yourself that Texas Tech wasn't an SEC caliber brand in 1996. Exactly. That's why it works. The SEC is not chasing prestige, they're planting a flag. The move is framed not as permanent expansion, but as phased scheduling integration, trial membership, revenue ramp up, late night ESPN window experimentation. Arkansas supports it. Alabama quietly backs it, because Alabama sees the future coming faster than others do. And that sets the table for the 1997 ripple. In 1997, Texas Tech enters hybrid SEC play. They beat Arkansas and Lubbock. They push LSU to the wire. They prove they belong competitively. But the real damage isn't on the field, it's in the Big 12 boardroom. Texas begins pushing unequal revenue. Nebraska resents the imbalance. Colorado quietly explores Pac conversations, and Texas A&M feels betrayed by Tech speed. The Big 12 is technically stable, but culturally fractured. And you may be thinking to yourself that one team leaving wouldn't destabilize an entire conference. Normally you'd be right, but the Big 12 was never culturally unified. It was stitched together from the ruins of the Southwest Conference and Big 8. And Texas Tech leaving immediately exposes that fragility. And that sets the table for 1998 and the title that changes everything. Now we reach the pressure point, 1998. The BCS is supposed to launch smoothly, but bowl tie-ins are complicated by the SEC's Western expansion. Fiesta Bowl leverage changes, Big 12 politics intensify. In real life, Tennessee wins the national title. In this alternate history, Kansas State runs the table and reaches the title game, and they win. The Big 12 claims the national championship, right as it's politically cracking. That's the illusion of strength. And it delays fracture just long enough to make it catastrophic. And you may be thinking to yourself that the BCS wouldn't collapse over one expansion move. Not collapse, strain. Emergency summits, vote tension, Delayed clarity in ranking formulas. The BCS survives but barely. And the SEC realizes something critical. The next era will belong to whoever modernizes first. And that sets the table for the Alabama fork. This is where the dynasty map changes. Alabama in 1998 sees the SEC expanding west, offense evolving nationally, and recruiting moving towards Texas. Instead of drifting through early 2000s instability, Alabama accelerates. They modernize offensive philosophy in 1999. They invest in infrastructure earlier. They secure West Texas recruiting pipelines via Texas Tech's crossplay. By 2002, Alabama is already structurally modern, which means when the early 2000s begin, Alabama's not rebuilding, they're ready. The dynasty doesn't start in 2009, it starts in 2004, and that changes everything. That changes LSU's arc, Florida's rise hits stronger resistance, and USC collides with a much stronger prepared SEC earlier, all because of a defensive expansion in 1996. And that sets the table for the Big 12 fracture. By 1999, Texas pushes revenue dominance, Nebraska considers alternatives, Colorado explores pack alignment, trust evaporates. The Big 12 doesn't go away immediately, but it becomes politically hollow. And the SEC, it looks visionary. This is alternate history, but every incentive in this timeline is real. TV windows, revenue drama, recruiting geography, administrative ego. It doesn't require fantasy, just one different decision. And that sets the table for why this could have happened. You may be thinking to yourself that this sounds way too aggressive for the SEC of the 90s. And that's fair. But remember, conferences don't move when they're desperate. They move when they feel like they're losing power. The SEC in 1996 sees a Western Bloc forming, and in this alternate history, they acted and nearly broke the BCS in the process. And if you love deep dive alternate history like this, where one decision reshapes an entire era of college football, hit like so this gets pushed to more fans. Comment below, does the Big 12 survive this, or does the BCS break first? And if you want more pre-2000 conference chaos and dynasty, ripple and alternate history maps, make sure you subscribe. Check out the videos on your screen now, because there are a lot more decisions that almost and did happen in an alternate universe. And I'll see you in the next timeline.